So the Helldivers 2 fan film For Liberty by Plot Coalition and the guys over at that channel just dropped, and I have to say, it was an amazing experience to see live. I know joining thousands of you for the show was a great experience. Seeing all those live interactions and the awesome moments was just really, a fun experience, and we got to also engage and interact with the content creators for the show as well. And then sticking on to see the after show and seeing the cast and crew behind the scenes, that was a great experience as well. But what I think that they did amazing was capture the essence of what Helldivers is, from the animation style and the humor to the overall storytelling. I think they really held true to what we expected as a fan base. And being a huge fan and a content creator of Helldivers, I wanted to, sit back, analyze the project a little bit, and also provide for you a spoiler light type of review. I won't go into heavy spoilers, but I will cover some main things like storytelling, the musical score, the animation, some key themes that were playing throughout, but also, friends, some interesting things that were proposed, like new enemy units that are kind of changing up what the lore could be, and I think would be great additions to the overall video game if, Arrowhead wants to listen and add that. But then also setting up some other interesting and unique interactions that could happen within the series. But friends, without further ado, let's dive in. So we have to talk first about the animation, because honestly, it was a huge standout for this project. And I was blown away because not only was the rendering of the Helldivers so immaculate, but the terrain and the Terminids, the automatons, everything that we saw just made us feel like we were actually part of the world of Helldivers 2. And at sometimes, friends, I felt like I was on that battlefield from that opening scene when they're dropping in and, they're really getting into the foray of the chaos. You feel like, hey, I am on this front line doing this with everyone, and it was great. Maybe we are the kind of propaganda guys in the background with the camera on our shoulder, being able to see it from our POV, but it was a truly great experience, everyone. And you can really tell that they poured their heart and soul into making this project, because it took, I believe, 15 months in total to actually create the project end to end. And there was some interesting things like, mocap, where they were doing motion capture for bodysuit tracking for you, from everything from salutes to, different movements of the Helldivers. And then, of course, lots of blender work and things like that was happening. But everything was just, very immaculate, I found. Even in the thick of things, when maybe there's a lot happening on the screen from the different battles, I'd say that they really made sure that they locked in the visuals and they kept the quality consistent throughout the entirety of the film. And I have to say, kudos to Plot Coalition on this. I know his previous works are always pretty high quality, but I'd say probably, this is the best one that I've seen. And honestly, there's only going to be going up from here, I think, for him and his channel. So, well done. So just to kind of give an easy score out of the bat, for the animation, we're going to have to give this score a 10 out of 10. Now let's talk about the musical score. For this project, they over-delivered in terms of giving us a masterpiece of a score. Now, this thing is fully composed throughout the entirety of the film, and honestly, it goes great. For those of you that don't know, the musical score is really just like the lifeblood of the film for really bringing everything together. Because, without good music to your film, it will feel a little bit hollow. So they did a really great job of composing tracks that would really capture the essence and the feeling. And I'm going to show off just a little bit right here so you can fully appreciate it. Now, obviously, that was amazing to hear, and I'm sure that you could always tell, like, from other films out there that it might not be the best in their projects, and maybe that detracts from their film a little bit, but I'd say this was a huge plus for Liberty. And there was only probably one moment, even though I really loved the scene for the First War veterans coming in, the song, the shanty that they sang, it was fun and everything. I just thought that it kind of slightly broke with the overall sound design, but that's just little nitpicks here and there, but it was still a good song, it was still fun, and I think that it added to the overall scene moments. But if I had to nitpick anything, I'd say that it maybe detracted from the overall sound design just a tad. But friends, again, we're going to have to give this one a high score of a 9.5. But before we get into the meat of things, we're going to have to now talk about the voice acting. So, the voice acting overall was pretty strong, but some people were more of a standout than others. Looking at you, veteran, I'd say that probably out of the entirety of the film, you were one of my more favorite performances. But there was also some fun ones like the yogurt diver, who is more of this greenish cadet who has a youthful tone to him and is quite fun. But there were some others that they did a great job, but it was more of a bit of a passing. Maybe not too much of emotion was there as it could have been. So I'd say I'd have to give this my lowest score out of everything for an 8.5. So now let's get into storytelling. There's a lot more to cover here, so I'm going to try my best not to spoil too much for you, but it's kind of hard not to give away anything, so, here's your fair warning over here. Alright, let's go. So the main story of For Liberty follows Marshal 5531, a Helldiver that assumes command of Judgment Squad after her previous Marshal falls in battle. And I have to really say, the way that they handle mortality in this video really is very much in line with the Helldivers universe because, regardless of who you are, you're not safe from being taken out by a Terminid. And the way that Plot Coalition talked about it is like, hey, I'm going to progress the story as much as I can, but when I feel like it's best to kill off a character within the film, I'm going to do it. And it really showed, friends. No one is safe in this film. So if you're going in with the expectation that, hey, just because they're a named hero out there, that they're going to make it to the end, go in with a little bit of a different expectation because you might be a little heartbroken from time to time, but it really adds to it, and I'd say that, hey, keeping consistent with that was what we wanted as a fan base. But following Judgment Squad, we need to, see the story unfold from, hey, there's a lot of chaos going on in the battlefield, there's some rookies coming in, there's a mixture of a veteran coming in to really kind of guide and protect the rookies as they're going through taking out certain enemy automaton bases and taking on Terminids, to really unveiling what is the automaton plot, because, hey, they tend to be more of the threat within the universe for, their higher levels of intelligence, but also they have a devious subplot that's happening within this film, and you're going to get to see that unveiled and see a secret that, the Marshal will have to come and face throughout the film. And she's in this battle between, hey, I want to let my squad know what's going on because there is this high-level mission detail that we should all be aware of if we're going to fight in the battlefield, up against the veteran who, for all of his efforts and merit, he is a loyalist to the cause of Super Earth. He's like, I know that there might be intel over here, or I do know it, but it's not for everyone to share out, and don't be telling out everyone because you're going to put the mission at risk. So there is that friction between the two of them, but overall they are working out together to make sure that they are executing and getting their missions done. So you'll see this story unfold from trying to get to the automaton secrets and seeing, hey, this new type of threat being bioengineered that they're going to have to face. And I really appreciated just the overall story beats of the film from, you kind of felt green going into it, and then by the end of it, you were really connecting with Judgment Squad and maybe also their support units that were coming in as reinforcements to help them out. And I thought that they did a really good job of the character building and the connections between them, even though maybe some people didn't last so long. Myself and everyone in that live chat watching the film, we were all like shouting for one guy's name, like, yes, Yogurt Diver, who we're going to have to talk about for sure within this film, to even the Cheese Diver and the Veteran, and maybe even some of the other awesome guys that I'll mention in a little bit, that you had these great connections with. And when a story can do that, I'd say they did an excellent job of making sure that they capture everything needed. But let's get down into some more granular little bits of the story. So we're going to have to talk about how this movie handles Helldiver 2 propaganda. Now, we know that the truth officers are always watching, friends, and that is so true with on the ship on the Super Destroyer for this film, because as the democracy officer is talking to what we all think could potentially be a version of Joel, because it's kind of like this AI Jarvis-y type of computer that's giving commands out to the democracy officer, you see that he might start to question it a little bit, and the Truth Enforcer is a little too quick to kind of reach for that gun over there. And it's interesting how they play into the Helldivers 2 type of propaganda and memes that we all have come to know, because there's even this one moment, right, where the Judgment Squad will encounter a Thief soldier who's kind of lost his mind and might be talking about some things that might not be too democratic. And the veteran actually goes and dispatches of him pretty quickly. And I thought that, hey, that's pretty interesting and curious that they are going so full bore on, like, hey, Super Earth says this is what we're following, and you see certain characters really playing into that more than others. Our main marshal, though, will have moments of kind of not too much of questioning Super Earth so much, but more of like, hey, people need to know things that are being kept from them, and I'm going to try to unveil that. But will also eventually fall in line, because they will discover this factory, right? And it turns out that, spoiler, that it's supposed to be an automaton facility, but it turns out it's actually a Super Earth facility. Now, I'm not going to give away the secret of it, but it really shows and sets us up more of like the bad guys for Super Earth than maybe what we've been told. And I thought that, like, awesome of them to really, you know, play into those key themes here of, are we really the good guys or are we the bad guys? Have we been fed propaganda our whole times? Because we know all the posters that Super Earth puts up, and they've been a lot of fun to interact with. But again, the way that they handle propaganda in this film, I thought was really, really interesting, and I definitely enjoyed it. So continuing a little bit more with that propaganda sense, but moving on to then the cadet experience, we have to talk about the yogurt diver. Yes, friends, justice for the yogurt diver. Now, if you don't know who we're talking about, he is a bit in this film of a poster boy for Super Earth as the ideal Helldiver. We have this opening montage of him being a badass against the Terminids, going and shooting everyone down, while also, you know, promoting Froyo of Super Earth to try to sell as much of it as they possibly can. You know, some healthy dose of patriotism and whatnot. But what you come to find is, as soon as he actually gets drafted and hits the battlefield, he's a bit scared, and all the illusions that you had of him being this serious, well put together Helldiver goes right out the window, and he's kind of crumbling on the battlefield and, you know, following the footsteps of everyone else. And I don't want to give too much away for it, but there's a reason why we're saying justice for the yogurt diver, because, you know, things go a little bit wrong for him. But it was interesting to see how they play with the themes of, hey, Super Earth puts this notion into our heads of, these guys are the standard of what you should be and the ideal Helldiver, and then in actuality on the battlefield, that can go out the window when the bolts start flying and the claws come out, and I really loved how they showcased that. Next up, we're going to have to mention Eagle One. Now, I really love the depiction of her within this film. It's always been a bit of a meme that Eagle One is everyone's girlfriend, everyone's wife within the Helldivers community, and it was great to see her actually, you know, fleshed out in the film. She's a bit of a badass from the intro when she comes flying in and bombing the enemies and giving the Judgment Squad a free one to take out some enemies, to then, you know, even helping out later on in the final push when she's downed and has to go do a different position and then get maybe into a mech or two over there. And don't to spoil too much, but it's very interesting to see, like, hey, this is an actualized character, not just like a kind of throwaway, and has something to add to the plot. And I appreciated that because it's someone that's on the battlefield that always has our back. Now, before we talk about our main two characters more in depth, which are the Marshal and the Vet, I want to talk about my favorite group of guys from here, and that is going to be the veterans of the first Helldivers War. Just when things are getting bleak and, you know, our main characters are about to bite the big one, out of nowhere, the smokes come out, and these badasses hit the battlefield in style, and they really show you why they have survived so long within of the storytelling, is because they are highly skilled and trained, and they're just singing shanties throughout it and laying waste using all the weapons with heavy efficiency. And, doing things that we normal Helldivers can't, like dual wielding stalwarts or having two different dog units with them to cover their back. It was great to see. I absolutely loved the scene. It was probably my favorite out of everything that we've had in this film, and I think that's also true for many of you. So now on to the veteran. Now, the veteran has an amazing introduction from the hilarious intro of this scene over here.
Who is that?
We call him the veteran. He's lasted longer than any other Helldiver I know.
And how long is that?
9 patriotic minutes. Ooh.
To then hitting the battlefield and taking on all of the Terminids that were about to wipe the Judgment Squad. This guy was amazing to watch unfold. You could always rely on him. He was going to, get everyone through the battlefield, but also force them to do objectives when they weren't believing in themselves. But he could also be cold and calculated, as we saw with the Seif unit before, and even when the Marshal is starting to kind of question things, he gets a little drawn down with his gun on her for a little bit. Not to get too much into spoiler territory, but there is a little bit point of contention for a slight little bit over there. But I really love his character. He is the, iconic badass of a film that every milsim type of movie has. And not only is this guy fully capable, he's like the true patriotic loyalist and just an overall manly type of dude. And it's hard to not like him as a character. And his voice actor, again, was superb in their job. So, for me at least, this is, aside from the First War veterans, my favorite standalone character throughout the entire series. Then on to our protagonist of the film, and that is going to be the Marshal, which once again, she is thrust into the position after the previous one is taken out. And she lacks some confidence at first, but from a nudge from the veteran, she quickly does an about face and goes right into the role and is giving out commands and making sure that the rest of the squad is trying to stay alive and move on to the different objectives. And what I really like about her character is that you have just an ordinary soldier trying to get through the war and trying to grapple with the decisions of, hey, do I put my squad in danger? How are we going to make it out of here? How am I going to tell people about the mission or not? Well, having some friction again with the veteran. To then, having a truly epic moment as the hero of the story, fighting side by side with the veteran when all the waves of automatons around them, to being saved by the different veterans that are coming from the First War, to then the last final big stand that they have as a group against a huge onslaught of Terminids and automatons. You even see a Hive Lord coming through at one point, and there's this epic last stand moment. And the way that the movie really sets it up is going to be like, hey, this is the ideal Helldiver that you have. I know that in the beginning, from the propaganda with the Yogurt Diver, it's what they try to kind of show us as this is our ideal Helldiver, but truly and really, it is the Marshal, because she embodies the ethos of the Helldiver. Someone that's going to go and give her all for the cause while also being brave and being a good teammate to everyone else. And I love that about her. And then you can see how, again, Super Earth will kind of twist things and turn her into this hero for everyone to aspire to at the end of the film. And that plays out, and I don't want to give away too much, but they make an idol out of her character, and that's just something that Helldivers does in the universe to try to aggrandize people like General Brash and John Helldiver, of course, to make more people want to be patriotic and hit the battlefield and become Helldivers. So you can totally understand that they went for that over here, but I love seeing the story for her character play out in all these different beats, and then, really just turns it again to one more big propaganda piece, but I think that's perfectly fine for the world that we're in. But all in all, wonderful character. So with all those major story points considered, I'm going to have to give this a very strong score of a 9 out of 10 for storytelling. They did a great job, Plot Coalition, and all of you friends that are on the writing team. Kudos to you. Okay, before I give the final two scores, there's two things I need to touch on, and that's going to be the extra world building that Plot Coalition has done, as well as bringing something that the fans have asked for a while. So I'll do the latter first, and the something that we've wanted to see is going to be faction wars. In this one, it's pseudo because you're seeing Terminids and automatons on the same planet during the fights, but they're kind of working together in a way, and you'll see that unfold in the movie. But it opens up what we've always wanted as a community, and we've asked for, and I know that Arrowhead is listening, to be able to have, three-way fights, four-way fights on a planet, and I think that we can work our way towards there because the community definitely wants it. But on to the more interesting thing, and that's something that they've done for a bit of lore expansion, and that is going to be, what we're calling autominids. Now, the autominids are a fusion between the Terminids and an automaton. Yes, I know. Bear with me. There's a couple scenes from the film where you see these bioengineered, grafted with automaton parts as Terminids go after the Helldivers, and they are epic to see and a little bit worrisome, but I think it could be really awesome if Arrowhead sees this, listens, and decides, hey, that's a great idea. Let's incorporate that into the game. I personally think that that would be an amazing addition to Fight on the Battlefield, and I think you guys would agree with me, but if you want to see what it can look like, watching the film, it is truly amazing to see what they've done with it, so great job. Okay, so on to the adaptation of the film and for its score. So I have to say, they did an amazing job of making sure they captured the essence of what Helldivers is. A lot of times you see, as we've mentioned before, when films take on beloved different fiction of different fan bases, they ruin it. Looking at you, The Witcher. But in this case, they did such a good job of capturing and distilling that into a wonderful film, and I have to give them a 10 out of 10 score. All right, on to our final overall score, and that's taking the average of everything that we've shown, and that is going to be bringing us to a 9.3 out of 10, friends. Yes, I know it is definitely going to be scored high by me based off of what you saw earlier, but this is a super solid movie. Again, friends, if you've not seen For Liberty, go to Plot Coalition's page. I will link it in the description for you to go check it out. It is well worth it. It's 50-something minutes of pure amazingness. And friends, you're going to love it if you're a fan of Helldivers. So thank you so much for listening to me. I know this is a different type of video. We're trying to do different things on this channel. And I appreciate you listening to me ramble on for a little while. And if you like this and want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, all the different stuff that you can, because it helps us out, and we will see you in the next one.